Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, as we march forward towards our Meat Fortress update next week, we understandably have more of the stock arsenal functioning, ready to play with pretty much. Well, at least ready to play with in my testing scene. Remember, this won't be out till next week. But I thought I would go into detail with what is essentially the far more exotic half of our TF2 weapons. So let's jump in right to it. So the first one is our grenade launcher for the Demoman, and we got a couple things that are sort of special about this. Well, for one, in TF2, probably for balance reasons, this actually only fires 4 shots. When the Demoman reloads it, he only puts, well, visually it looks almost closer to putting 4 grenades in one pipe. But we can load all 6 into it here. You will notice that I have remodeled just a slightly higher fidelity grenade to play with. We've got, you'll notice on a number of the weapons, we've now got these like wonderfully wibbly bits here, and this is courtesy of Synicat, who's been a huge contributor to this update, has worked on both stuff for the scene and a bunch of sort of supporting code. I've wanted some decorative physics joints for a while on H3 guns, but because of the way that I move firearms around with velocity manipulation, using real joints has been a little disastrous in the past. But Synicat here gave us something, this doesn't actually collide, it just responds to force, but I find that they just end up making the weapons feel so much more alive in your hands, and it's fitting for how goofy TF2 ones are. Anyway, enough of the wibbly bits, let's fire a grenade! Boom! They are physics active, they bounce around. Boop. Let's spawn ourselves some targets. They will still impact detonate only if they actually direct hit a bot. Blammo! Wonderful. And of course, we've actually got casings now. This one, unlike the one in the rendition in TF2, does not in fact fire the whole bullet, only the front of the bullet. Let's give ourselves a few wandery bots. What's great about this is you can just spam it, and the first shot ends up flinging the other 5 explosives all over the place. Oh. Ah! Wonderful.
Should have paid more attention to Pete's goal.
You really should have. But yeah, so you end up just getting these great chain reactions. Wonderful. I have spent far too much time playing with this one already. But yeah, but beyond that, this was one of those pieces that I was able to pretty much use stock, which was a nice change compared to some of the more challenging ones. Let's move on to the next. Next up, we have the syringe gun for the medic, which has been a little creatively implemented. We've got our magazine here that in reality, despite firing 40 shots in TF2, this clearly only holds 12. So this is a 12-shot weapon. And I have, this is a little performance expensive to use compared to some of the other weapons, as what I really wanted was for the syringes to actually stick into their targets visually and actually stab into them. And the functionality that I already had in the game for that was melee weapons that can stab. So what happens here is that I'm actually firing a standard H3 projectile, and 1 frame later it replaces itself with a syringe that is coded up as a melee weapon. And so if we come over here, these actually stick into their targets. And I don't think, yeah, I can't grab this. This is not interactable, but I think I can grab one off the ground and stab it in there myself. That's so. Although his Kevlar is mostly defending against us, so let's Oh. There we go. Medicine. I think he's actually aired out.
Meat from me.
Next test subject. Whap. You can see they still do ricochet off sometimes. The heavy here is quite damage resistant. That was one of the other things I got done this week, is that these the 9 classes now all have their separable stats implemented. So the heavy's really tough and doesn't get stunned. The pyro is mostly flame retardant, things like that. Pull that out. Whap, 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 whap. So not super effective actually per shot, but not every gun can be a super effective one. Still have a ton of fun with it. And as you can see here, this is effectively firing from an open bolt. I sort of imagined that this would be some sort of a pneumatic weapon. The original concept art actually has like a hose coming out of the bottom here. And so the sounds that this makes are essentially the sort of air gap occurring here and then snapping shut and then releasing whatever amount of that compressed gas would be used to fire the projectile. Seemed to make the most sense. Well, as much sense as a gun that fires syringes can be. Come on. Oh, goodness. Right where his eye would be if he had eyes. Whap. So there you have it. That is the syringe gun. Oh, he's having a bad day. Awesome. Let us move on to the next one. Haha! I know a lot of you have probably been waiting for this one, but we have the flamethrower. A number of astute community members for H3 were basically like, "Wait a minute, did you implement that flamethrower a while back just for the need for the Meat Fortress one?" And the answer to that is yes. So let's grab some Wanderbots here, and let's take a look at how our flamethrower functions. It's two-handed, like the others. The gauge that the other flamethrower uses is actually represented here.
Go to the next wander point,
on the back.
Machine said. Weird, thinking about all the terrible coding.
There we go. And we can grab it and rotate it left or right. So if you rotate this all the way to the left, you get a super wide flame. If you rotate it all the way to the right, you get a focused one. And if you have it in the middle, sort of a mix.
I want to be a tuner.
Note how the pyro here catches on fire, but isn't really bothered by it. Our spy, on the other hand. Oh goodness! Oh no, I'm on fire too!
Go to the next wander point, the state machine said.
There we go.
I just realized.
Let's try to not set ourselves on fire. And of course, has the other important property of the TF2 flamethrower, which is haha, air
really
blasting.
Get the laundry done tomorrow.
Do 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 do.
I'm positive this is where I left my key.
Super fun.
What was up?
And remember, all of the fire that you see here is collision active, so it can go on the floor. Haha. And of course, our pyro doesn't really care. And we are out, as signified by the fact that our pilot light has gone out.
That.
Wonderful. On to our next firearm. And here we have the soldier's rocket launcher, which this is the one weapon that I could not bring myself to change anything about the functionality of, despite the fact that it makes no sense. And the reason for that just has to do with the fact that the soldiers, what makes this unique, not just as a weapon, but as a tool for locomotion, is its ability to fire multiple shots in a row. In reality, with a rocket launcher, you actually need a completely clear barrel to fire a shot. And I had considered for a while of sort of inserting like a magazine up here that would load it, but I didn't want to muck with the design. So this is the sort of exception in the whole set where I was like, you know what, it doesn't make any sense, but we still load 4 rockets into the front of this. Come on, there we go. We can see we've got this wonderful wibbly bit here. Haha, I love physics joints. Of course, unlike a TF2 rocket, which deals not that much damage, this is just a full power rocket. It is not messing around.
Situation.
Yeah. Oh, only caught the edge of that. And one more. Wonderful. Wonderful device. We will take this outside in a few minutes. Boom! Minigun time. This is one of those ones that I got asked a whole bunch, how are you going to make this reload? And actually, this was one of the first ones when I was originally looking over the model files, trying to figure out how I was going to implement things for Meat Fortress, that I was like, oh dear, this is, I don't want to just make it something that is spawned and disposed of. And so what I ended up doing is sort of filling in a bunch of gap geometry here on the frame and our sort of connection to our motor, and adding a couple extra ports here on the top that are clearly designed to mount into those sections so that we can actually hook up and detach our drum on the underside. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. And this because I have kept this to the 200 round capacity that the version has in the game. You actually chews through its ammo pretty fast, meaning you'll just have to reload a whole bunch. And we're out. So there you have it. Our wonderful minigun, Sasha, doing such a great job for us. And then now, the weapon in today's set that got the most modification from its stock configuration. So, I said last week that the most difficult mesh to edit for Meat Fortress out of all of the weapons was the revolver. But that didn't mean that it was the most difficult weapon to deal with. That prize goes to our sticky launcher. And the reason for this is that once again, it's especially the animation in TF2 of this weapon doesn't make any sense. It's magically reloaded via just cocking the bolt a bunch of times. It doesn't ever seem to be loaded, and its ejection port that has been on this model the whole time. What is that even used for? And so this is the one that I took the most sort of liberties in sort of reimagining this as something that would make a sort of sense. And it's in a couple pieces. The first is that this is what the sticky launcher fires. It's the sticky shell. It actually has a casing. As you can see, it's pretty small. And my sort of idea behind this is that the reason that the sticky bombs are actually sticking to things is that they're inflating when they fire. And so the moment this fires and comes out of the barrel, the sticky bomb cartridge expands to be a full-size object. And there's another piece that was modified for this, or rather added to it by a TF2 community contributor, Pi Savvy, that is to replace the fact that when we set up stickies in TF2, we can see right in the interface how many of them are active. There's no UI here in VR, and so we have an added device to our sticky launcher, a wonderfully wibbly radio receiver that will show us, roughly speaking, how many stickies we have active. So let's pull this back and see how we load this device. Its action and this piece from it were inspired by the 1941 Johnson rifle, which basically loads via a stripper clip into its integrated drum magazine. So we affix the stripper clip, we load in the shells, we discard the clip, we release the bolt here, and then we fire. Projectiles come out, same speed as they do in TF2, and we can even hold the trigger to charge it up. Fire it even further. Oh, come on, we can do better than that. There we go. And as you can see, our signal strength has increased, letting us know that we've got 6 active stickies. Oop. Let's just empty that. And if we want to detonate them, we just click the touchpad or joystick. Ha-ha! Wonderful. Let's load that back up. Let's spawn ourselves some wandering bots. Oh, terrible aim.
That texture repeat is really obvious.
Ah, that's what you get for back talking, bot. Oops, yes, I'm knocking this out of my hand.
Go
There
to the
we
next
go.
wander point, the state machine said.
As you can see, they still bounce off bots, just like in the game. They'll only stick to environment geo. Wonderful. So there you have it. I love the wobbly bits. That is
That texture
our
repeat is really obvious.
sticky launcher. Oh, missed him. Try one more time.
Give me a break.
Wonderful. All right, let's get to the part that I know a whole bunch of you have been waiting for. Let's take that rocket
Why
launcher
the long
outside.
face, he said. What a jerk.
All right, we are outside with, as promised, with our various ordnance weapons. Please try not to mind the dust. I'm in the middle of tearing out some assets and replacing them. There's some light mapping blotches and things like that in this copy of this scene. But we're mainly here to talk about rocket jumping and how rocket jumping mechanics work in this. So one of the challenges of implementing something like rocket jumping in VR is that the nature of the way a mouse or a controller works in a pancake game means that it's very easy to completely precisely place a rocket explosion directly beneath you, or beneath you and slightly behind you, because when you drag your mouse all the way down, it will stop exactly straight down. There's nothing like that in VR. It's quite difficult if I wanted to, say, shoot exactly below my head. There would be no way that I would be able to do that with the precision that someone playing a regular standard FPS does. And so the way that rocket jumping, inertia, and such works in H3 is a little different. Basically, there are two, and we can't jump. Well, we can, but some of us are kind of fat, so we can't really jump that high. There's going to be no crouch jumping over barriers for this one here. Anyway, so basically, the way that rocket jumping velocity from a sticky bomb or from the rocket launcher affect you in this game is based on whether or not you are grounded, meaning if the game recognizes you are currently walking along the ground. If you're grounded and an explosion occurs below you, it will only add exactly upward velocity to your current forward velocity. So let's say that we are over in 2-axis, where we can sort of move forward and back very precisely. We can go really fast if we have our speed set all the way to the top. Now, if I'm running forward and I fire this at the ground, it will add my vertical velocity, well, from the explosion to my forward one. So let's try this now. Let's run forward. Woo! Oh no, we're gonna overshoot. Let's get a little more. Oh, don't overshoot, don't overshoot. And perfect. Wonderful. If we are not grounded when we fire, what ends up happening is that the sort of angle relative to that explosion to us is calculated a little differently, which allows us to do things like fall off of the ends of walls and get a ton of lateral velocity. So let's see if we can't get over there. Uh-oh. and boof. Perfect. Can also get right up close to something. Rocket jump up and just step a little bit forward in our tracked range. And we're up here. Wonderful. This time, I'm going to use a sticky to get myself off the ground, and then try to use the rocket launcher from there. Let's see how this goes. Do. And there we go. All right. Let's get some more rockets in here. Oh no, we're coming right towards the cliff wall. And boop. Come over here. Let's see. I'm still practicing the arm swinger launch off, mainly because of the fact that when you're arm swinging, you sort of move at this like zigzag. So you have to time the shot pretty much perfectly. Let's see if we can do that here. There we go. Put another rocket in. And let's keep going. Woo! And oh no, we're gonna rocket jump right out of the level. No! All right, that was totally us rocket jumping right out of the level. But you get the point. I'm still tuning this, and obviously locomotion and what happens when you hit against surfaces, air control and things like that vary in H3 compared to, say, a classic Source game. Some of that's by design and some of that's just VR is different from a pancake game, but it's something that I do want to keep tuning and seeing if I can get some of the sort of sliding behavior, for those of you who can stomach it, into the player controller to increase what you can do with a with your rocket jumping. Bam! Another in there. Oh. And stall ourselves there. And oh, I never get tired of doing this. Oh no, except where we're gonna land. Can't have that. Walking is for plebs. All traversal should be done via rocket explosions. Oh no! Oh, no collider on that! Too much fun. Too much fun. Anywho, let's jump out of VR and talk about the frantic stuff that I'm going to be getting ready for next week. Yo, howdy folks. Just a quick after footage segment for today as I am frantically working away. We're still on target to have this update ready for you folks to play on the 28th. Just so you're aware ahead of time, because certain things are taking a little longer to fully polish and get as reliable as they need to. There may be some of the functionality or some of the class equipment that is still a bit work in progress. It's something that we're going to keep, working on and iterating after the release, just so that you're aware when you jump in and you're like, oh, this piece of equipment doesn't feel 100% done, or the options for the various sort of play modalities aren't fully filled in. Just wanted to make sure to set expectations appropriately, because we're just racing away on this one, but it's going to be a bit of a photo finish. So anywho, I hope this part 2 of our Meat Fortress Arsenal was enjoyable and illuminating to you in terms of seeing the various things you need to think about when bringing in fictional sort of objects into a virtual environment, and sort of deciding what you want to keep that's absurd and bizarre and playful, and what you can sort of make interesting in other sorts of ways by tugging a little bit closer to reality. Anywho, I'm gonna run now. Gonna get right back to work. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon. Peace.